Hi everyone, welcome to the Brothers in Business podcast. This is a small intro to give you a bit of an insight into our podcast, why we're doing it, what we're going to be covering throughout the episodes of this podcast, and the journey that we're going to be going on together. So, firstly, the reason for us doing this podcast, quite simply, me and Cody have been in business together for the last 10 years. We've gone through the ups, the downs, the highs and the lows, the successes, and most importantly, the failures. And we've reached a point where we feel we could actually start to add some value to people that we know, people that we don't know. And hopefully, if we can affect at least one person's life for the better, whether that's financially or help set them off on a path that we feel could be more productive for them, we feel it's going to be worth it. So without further ado, this is Brothers in Business. And let's get started.
Yeah, so I mean, some of the main things that we're going to be talking about are, problem solving, recruitment challenges, working with family, which obviously we've got a lot of experience with. The two of us, it's been high, it's been low, it's been good, it's been bad. But, I think we've learned a lot from, our dad's been a massive inspiration for us both, I'd say. Me, myself, I've worked from bar jobs and security for Sports Direct, if you could believe it. And but it's all these little jobs that I've had and I know you've had have ended up leading us to where we are now.
Exactly. So I think for us, obviously, what we want to do is, I think this generation, the country we're living in, England, if you weren't 100% sure of the accent.
Some people are unsure of the accent.
Yeah, the Birmingham accent, we're going to have to apologise for ahead of time. But I think for us, we think that there's a lot that we can offer people through the actual lessons that we've learned, like I said, the highs and the lows. And as I said, we feel like a lot of people are lost at the minute. And when we first said that we would commit to doing this podcast, we were actually at a money maker summit with Rob Moore, who's quite an affluent entrepreneur in his own right. He's predominantly in property. But obviously we were at a money maker summit. And
there wasn't much money being made there, to be honest.
Well, there wasn't by the people there.
Yeah, but what we learned from the people that we were listening to was massive. Yeah,
for sure. And I think what it was the element of confusion that people have nowadays, certainly from our generation, is what should they be doing? How should they be doing it? Where they should be going? They finish school and potentially go to university just because it's the done thing, and they find themselves spending a load of money on a course that they think is going to help them in the long run, but they never actually end up using it. And that's what we found when we went to this Money Makers Summit. And a lot of the people there were putting their hands up and getting involved and trying to pay for as many different courses as possible, whether there was sort of drop shipping, there was a course on sort of speaking, podcasting obviously being one of them, investing in gold, investing in stocks and shares. And people have sort of gotten quite confused as to what they should be doing to actually end up being successful. So obviously we're going to cover a lot of the topics in this podcast on what we feel are the right steps to be taken. But I think what you'll all find, or what people will definitely find as they sort of go along this journey, if they were to be sort of brave enough to go on it themselves, is that everybody does the same thing. Whether you're Elon Musk, whether you're Cristiano Ronaldo, whether you're Tiger Woods, you'll start to see the same character traits within each of those people because they all know what it takes to be hyper successful. And predominantly, the main two features or characteristics that I would say is having hyper concentration and hyper discipline on a specific subject or skill. Once you've mastered that, and you've become an expert in that particular niche and field, you can then monetize that skill and knowledge that you've picked up over that period of time and share it with people. And that's really where the money starts coming in.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it ourselves. We've been extremely driven, extremely hardworking for 10 years. And, for the business we're working at now. And we've started right from the bottom, where it was pretty much the equivalent of sweeping floors. And now we've come to the point where we're running a successful business with, 7 figures.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that people give up too quickly. And I think if the one thing people could sort of take from what we sort of probably trying to talk about today, and certainly what we're going to be talking about in the episodes moving forward, is that you need to find something that you would sort of dedicate a large chunk of your life to. And I think it comes down to the level of success that you are interested in sort of trying to take on, because way I sort of speak to our team and we speak to ourselves is you can sort of judge yourselves and grade yourselves on almost like a good, great or excellent. You know, if you want to be the best in the world, you have to put more effort into that particular field than anybody else in the world that's doing it, because you're never going to be able to fake the hard work. You're never going to be able to lie about the sort of the lessons and the scars that you pick up along the way on that journey. You know, you could sort of, Manchester United can pay 100 million for me to be their best striker or their new striker, and put me in front of put me in front of goal with a football and I'd miss 90% of the shots that I take, because I haven't spent the hours and days and weeks and months in front of a goal in a game scenario, practicing, failing, going through the sort of the ups and the downs of the journey it takes to be, you know, let's say a Manchester United striker. And I'd fall on my face.
Minute.
No, probably not. In fact, if you want to sign me, man, give us a call. We could do something for you. But it's true. It's one of those things. So until you've gone through that sort of pain and you've gone through that journey, you're never going to be able to be successful. But if what your idea of success is to be average, then do the same as what everybody else is doing and you'll be average. But if that's what you're happy with, look, we're not here to tell you that average is wrong. We're not here to tell you that good is wrong or great. But where we want to be in life, and certainly where we see ourselves now, is being a step above, you know, the average, the norm, going above and beyond and looking to be sort of hyper successful, which takes the dedication and hard work.
Yeah, and it is difficult and it is hard and it's a grind. And if you don't, like you said, put the work in, you're never going to get there. I mean, like I say, starting from the bottom and coming here, it doesn't just happen overnight. It doesn't just like one click and it's done. It's taken hours and hours and hours and a lot of tears, a lot of hard work. But, you know, eventually you get out the other end and you're a better person for it.
Yeah, true. And like you said, talking about sort of actually what it costs to get us here, you know, it's about looking for opportunity, isn't it? And both of us, obviously, we were really fortunate to have a family business to go into, obviously with Dad and his hard work that he spent 40 years, you know, building a business. And, you know, the stories he's told us where he used to get up on sort of Saturdays and Sundays, he'd finish school, he'd go literally right after school, where everybody else nowadays is running home to their Xbox to play Call of Duty and play FIFA. I'll be honest, I was guilty of that as well. I think we all were.
I think we all were.
But I think it's that sort of, that discipline has gone. And nowadays it's like, you know, with our dad, so he would finish school, but he had this hyper focus for what he wanted to do. And he would go, and to be fair, he was lucky, his dad ran a factory. He wanted to be an engineer, so he would finish school and he would go to his dad's factory and he would work. He would work another 3 hours, another 4 hours. Then on his weekends, he'd go and work 8 hours. He'd learn the skill, he'd learn the craft. He'd spend all his time there. And obviously, slowly but surely, he's then been able to sort of expand on that, grow a business, build it up to what it is today, obviously with our help. But it's one where now, you know, he's a successful man in his own right and he deserves the sort of rewards that he's been able to afford himself. You know, he drives a Bentley, his car's worth £250,000. And I'm not saying that to rub it in. I'm saying that that's what it takes to be able to afford it. We all look at a Bentley and want one. Everybody wants a Bentley. You know, if I was to say to everybody now, you know, and do an Oprah, you get a Bentley, you get a Bentley, you get a Bentley, we'd all be loving it. But the reality is what people want is the reward, but what they don't want is the work it takes to get there. And that's where I think for us, what we're trying to highlight and we're trying to help people with is to keep them sort of on a path and try and push them back onto and stay on that path, keep them
stable.
Yeah, exactly. And so for us, as I said, if we can just help at least one person, there's no monetary gain for us in doing this. We're just here to try and help one person to at least push themselves into that next stage of their lives, whether it's a financial improvement, a lifestyle improvement, and that'll be a good day at the office for me.
Yeah, and you know, I think what we found, our dad found, and most of the examples is find something that you're passionate about. Because if you're passionate about it, you're more likely to then push yourself and drive to the end goal.
I'm going to disagree with you on that one. See, a lot of people do say, what I would say is it's easier if you love what you're doing, you're passionate about what you're doing, for sure, because then it makes it easier to wake up in the morning. But do you know what I'm passionate about? Success. I'm passionate about making money. I'm passionate about making something of myself. So whether that means shoveling dirt or whether it means, you know, working in an office somewhere, working with people I don't like, going through that sort of shit, really, things that I don't want to do. I look at the reward at the end and I think about the journey it takes to get there. And I would say to myself, do you know what? Is the reward worth the journey? And if I think to myself it is, then that's where I can drive my passion from. That's where I drive my motivation from. More from not wanting to be a failure, not wanting to sort of fall short on the targets that I've set myself. So I don't care whether I'm sweeping the roads or cutting grass or wiping arses. I don't care what it is.
You know, I don't know about a few of them.
Trust me, you see some of these nurses though, but you think, again, it's a good point. You know, these nurses in hospitals, they get paid sort of a ridiculous wage to do some of the worst jobs imaginable. Imagine literally having to sort of wipe asses. It's terrible, you know, and they get sort of all sorts that they have to deal with on a daily basis, and they don't get they don't get the reward that they deserve because of the field they're in. Now, this is another thing that we're going to touch on in a future subject. You know, whose fault is that in reality? Well, it's twofold because, you know,
skill-based, I suppose, to you know, if it takes, I don't know, months to train for something, then that's your value, I suppose, or an element of it.
Yeah,
which is a tough thing to say.
No, I agree. No, yes, in elements. I think nurses have to go through obviously a lot of qualifications, though. You know, it's not an easy thing to become a registered nurse. So they do just get it sort of, they get shafted at both ends, really, because it is the government that should be looking after our nurses a bit more. Not that I'm here trying to sort of, you know, wave my flag, but, you know, I was clapping on Thursdays during lockdown.
Yeah, come on, two-tick here.
But for me, you can't blame other people for your circumstances. And again, that's another sort of problem with our generation, I would say, because everybody's looking for an excuse. And yes, if you're a nurse and you love the job you're in and you're happy to take the sort of decrease in sort of salary to do a job you love, again, there's nothing wrong with that. But don't expect to be a millionaire by being a sort of in that particular profession when you know it's not going to take you to potentially the lifestyle that you want to live. But then if you were to go into it with the expectation of being a millionaire, you've only got yourself to blame, because you know you're never going to get there because you're the one that is in control of your own destiny. You're in control of the journey that you're on. So if you went into nursing and you expect to be buying yourself a Lamborghini, then you'll be waiting a long time, maybe when you're 70. It's
a very different profession.
Yeah, exactly. But crime pays at the minute, which is another thing we'll get into.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, that covers us sort of for the intro. So again, obviously, everybody, thanks for watching. This is obviously a first episode. Bear with us. It's going to take some refining for us to obviously find our stride with podcasting. But again, we're here to help you. We're here obviously for each other as well, because this is useful for us to be able to develop our own skills and go on our own journey together. But most of all, we're here to try and help you. So obviously, thanks for watching. My name's Tyler Barker.
My name's Cody Barker.
And this is the Brothers in Business.